State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy is joining us for our first Tacky Talk of 2026. Tacky, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Joe, and all the folks listening to us. I wish everybody a good start to 2026.
Happy and healthy is the key mottos for us this year, hopefully, right?
It is. We've we've been together when both of us were sniffling and challenged, and offline. Somebody may not be aware. We do talk about our personal lives a bit, and some of the challenges both of us face in our families and other things going on with our friends and whatnot. So while we don't always share that with you guys in public, be aware that we do have like other lives, and we sometimes will cross that into the show every so often. But a lot of what we talk about is before we start is about how we're all doing and what's going on at home and whatnot.
Yeah, I had a little time off for the past couple of weeks. So how were your holidays?
Well, in my case, January 31st is the last day I can grab campaign finance ending. So basically a donation. So we operate on a calendar year, not on a federal cycle. A federal cycle revolves around the primary and the final elections. We're calendar year driven. And we do have one of the toughest campaign finance laws in the country. So if you don't get to the maximum collection per individual, we can't take corporate or the maximum per PAC, but even if the PAC money is capped, you can not, take last year's number, add to 26, and then do that. You have to make sure you get your maximum out. So, for example, lobbyists are capped at $200 per individual in Massachusetts. So obviously, legislators try to get that $200 out of them. And it must be personal funds. They can't use business funds. They can't expense it. It is their own money. So I'm always very conscious of the fact that you literally take money out of someone's pocket during the holiday season. Of course, the cap for individuals that are not lobbyists is $1,000. Good luck trying to find a $1,000 donor. It can happen, but it's not easy. And the holiday season plus inflation plus cost of doing business is high. And as you can imagine, on Beacon Hill, it's a competition among legislators for campaign dollars from folks that do business with us. It's not like there are infinite pots of money. This ain't Washington, D.C. And even the political action committees are capped at $500 per political action committee. And I can only take $7,500 of political action committee money, PAC money. But there is a little nuance regarding people's committees, of which there are basically 6, but only 5 actually have money in it. And then, which is outside the cap, but still $100 limit. People committees are special PACs that have very low fundraising amount allowed. So I think they're capped at like $76, as opposed to other PACs that have much higher limits. And then there's also unions and associations collecting those monies. Most of those folks don't give more than $500 anyway, because they're capping how much they can donate in totality of donations per year. So this is pretty tough, and you guys should be aware the cost of doing business is not discounted for campaigns.
Right, that's right. You have to pay the same as everybody else.
Yeah, when the stamp price goes up, if you can't keep your campaign accounts paced with inflation, and you run into a campaign situation, it gets expensive. And of course, we've talked about this a lot about local charities. I have a stack of letters and emails printed out on my desk right now, of which I need to go through and put in my beginning donations to organizations such as, Quincy Community Action Programs, CAP, Father Bills, Quincy Youth Hockey. It just goes on.
Sure. We should remind folks this is an election year for state offices. So this is November 2026, right?
Yes, I am running for re-election in 2026. It is also the constitutional officers, meaning the governor, secretary of state, treasurer, etc., also up for re-election, as well as very specific county officials, depending where in the rotation of 4 6-year terms. So district attorneys, one of the county commissioners in Norfolk County, they're up for re-election, for example. Some of the other county positions on 6-year terms, interesting enough, was going to be in 2 years from now. So they'll be in 2028.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a U.S. congressional races, obviously. We also have a U.S. Senate races.
That's right.
Ed Markey is up this year. I believe Liz Warren is up in 2 years, and their 6-year cycle. So it'll be even though it's no presidential year, it's going to be a very active year in Democratic politics.
No, for sure. Yeah, and it's the midterm for a lot of congressmen across the country, so it'll be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the primaries obviously come first in both political parties, and we're watching to see how it plays out in the Democratic primaries first. I think people don't always realize that we look at the primaries beginning of September before we go into the November calculation regarding Republicans or unenrolled or other parties. And we have also a couple of special elections going off. Senator Ed Kennedy from Lowell, the state senator there, had passed away last year. The primary is the first Tuesday in February, followed by a final election 4 weeks later. My colleague Anne Margaret Frendu passed away sadly around Thanksgiving. Her first election is going to also start at the same day, I believe, February first Tuesday in February as well. So we do have some special elections going on, which is kind of tough because once you win the special election, you actually have to get signatures again immediately to run for the seat in the normal cycle.
That's right.
So just because you win a special election in 2026 doesn't mean that you're not have to go through the same process again to run again this September. And
Right. It's just to fill out that term. Right. Yep.
yeah, and the primary day is early this year, September 1st.
Oh, okay. Oh, very good. So would that be before Labor Day? Yeah.
Yeah, it's because the nature of having the law revolve around the final day in November, it actually revolves around that time period. So I believe it's no more than 8 weeks. I think
Okay.
8 weeks is maybe I think 8 weeks is the minimum. I have to look it up again, but
Okay.
you have to keep it. It revolves around its primary day revolves around a buffer around the November time period. And of course, by Constitution, the re-election is after the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's going to be an active year, definitely on the election front for sure.
Yeah, and you guys know I'm a political junkie. We've talked about this many times about anytime a November election, whether it be municipal, state, or federal, I am a junkie. So, it'll be interesting how it unfolds. But first things first, I'll get my signatures. Obviously, I talk about fundraising, getting ready for a potential campaign, or don't know what's going to happen, but you have to get ready no matter what.
Yeah.
And, obviously, observing state, county, and federal races, not just here, but also nationally.
Yep. Speaking of locally, I know you were at the swearing in for almost a brand new city council here in Quincy.
Oh, 7 out of 9 is pretty close to a full sweep, I will say. And 6 of them were brand new. And Mahoney's back for round 2, so to speak. I jokingly call it being recycled as the joke. I will blame Michael Morrissey for that one.
Okay.
But I always joke around about that. Like, why'd you come back? You already left. You want to do this again? But all joking aside, and congratulations to Anne Mahoney on being council president. If my memory serves, I think she may be the 4th woman to be council president.
I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah,
it'd be
I'm
interesting to learn about that. Yeah.
Yeah, Pat Tolan was the first one back in the 80s. And Oninia Liang was council president. I'm
Yes.
trying to remember if there's another female council president between, maybe she is the 3rd.
Don't know. Yeah,
It's
I could
not-
ask, former clerk Joe Shea would know that answer.
Yeah, Joe and Nikki would know the answer. I think she may be the 3rd.
Okay. All right. And I mean, she was the top vote getter citywide in the November election.
Yeah, a higher turnout than all of us expected, 22.9%, so almost 23% turnout. I had projected closer to 18% and below. And it's also a full city council with majority women for the first time.
That's right.
And you may recall it. They also knocked off essentially 5 incumbents.
Yes.
All the ward councilors that were challenged, Richard Ashe was the only one that didn't, were not actually 6 were knocked off. And they also knocked off one sitting at large councilor. And
Right.
I would be remiss if I don't say, thank you for the service for all the folks on both school committee and on the city council. Those of us who are elected know this is not always the easiest gig. This, no matter how you exit office, it doesn't matter how you exit. I mean, we cannot overlook that people make the time and sacrifice to run for local office and to do the work and the challenging we have, at all levels of government serving our constituencies.
Yep. Yep. And now 2 Asian Americans on the city council too.
Well, 2.5. You also have Noda Bono, who's half Thai.
Ah, very good. Okay.
So you want to get fractional. So we actually have more minorities on the council, and then you also your first Asian on the school committee, Chinese person, Tom Leong.
That's right.
So interestingly, it's actually a school committee came after council on having people of color. It's not actually not unusual in other places for school committee to be the first stop for people of color to go.
Right. No, exactly. Yep. So it's starting to be more reflective of for the city as a whole.
And a little bit younger.
Yes.
Some of the folks that have been elected actually younger than both of us.
Oh, by far younger than me.
Yeah, some of them. So that's not necessarily a bad thing either. I've been known to start to lament about politics and my age and young people, but the reality is, young people is always going to be the future of politics, regardless of my personal opinions. It doesn't matter what I think; it's just a fact of life.
That's right.
So it's good to see people who are younger than both of us get more involved, and I expect the future will continue to have folks that are much younger than both of us.
Let's hope if there's any future. Yes. We certainly wish them well.
Well, by age, I'm still the junior member of the delegation. So
Yeah, that's true, Tacky. That's right. You can always hold that ace in the hole.
by age, me and John Keenan both have by seniority because we got elected in the same year.
Right, right. Uh, so what's going on at the State House these days?
Very little. Let's be honest about it. We're going to do our opening ceremony required by Constitution on Wednesday. Tomorrow, I'll come into the office for those procedural process. Nothing happens, and in fact, the Constitution requires us to go through these procedures. There's no schedule for formal sessions yet. Kind of waiting out to see how it goes. On the committee level, we have a committee vote opened on yesterday, Monday, closing on Friday, which will finish off the bills filed on time, which means bills are filed on time at the beginning of the year. And we're trying to schedule bills that are filed after on time, hopefully before, hopefully in February. And then the meeting schedule is beginning. Requests for meetings have started, as well as trying to keep up with the event schedule. And, I was just saying my desk is full of emails and letters from events and donation requests for various organizations around the city. So I'm sifting through that stuff right now. But we'll wait and see. The governor's state address will be coming out some point middle of this month, I believe, like around the 22nd. And then House Ways and Means, Senate Ways and Means, and Secretary of Administration and Finance is actually producing somewhat late, but they're going to produce their consensus revenue figures the best they can for fiscal year 27 to give us some ideas about, potentially what we're facing on revenues. I say potentially because in this political environment, especially with an untrustworthy partner in Washington, D.C., which you and I, it's not just state politics, you at the local level, municipal governments, county governments, but also you as an individual, will see an impact of some form. What it is, I'm still unclear. We've talked about this many times.
Yeah, well, I mean, beginning the first of the year, there was changes to the Mass Health Connector law because of that, right?
Yeah, everyone has to reapply. Medicaid
Right.
people have to reapply. When they do this type of stuff, it's going to overwhelm our personnel because there's no way you can ramp up for 200,000 applicants,
Right.
reapplicants. I think that's the number that's been floating around. You guys can imagine on your own the workload and, of course, the frustration associated with it. If people can't get a response, they call us. But the reality is that when you have such a high volume of applications and you're not getting an answer, you don't care about the fact that we're overloaded. You just care.
Oh, you just want your answer, right?
You
Yeah.
just want your answer. And what will happen, and you see this in states like Florida, especially on other social assistance programs, people just give up
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
won't reapply. And you're gonna likely see that in Massachusetts. So we make it too onerous. And again, people get frustrated because we get overwhelmed and they just give up, which is
Yeah.
incredible because these programs are here to help you out. And then the end of the so-called Obamacare tax subsidies ended January 1st. And a lot of gig workers and small business owners are going to see a huge cost increase in doing business, of which they're going to have to decide if they're going to pass those costs on to you as the consumer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is a lot of folks are going to go without health insurance because they can't afford it, which is going to add to healthcare costs if they end up in, emergency rooms or hospitals.
Well, we are a mandatory care state, so hospitals have to take you in this state. That is not true in every state, by the way.
Right.
The state is a mandatory care state. So those costs will have to be picked up on a shared basis between the hospitals, which have been squeezed since COVID, believe it or not. They still haven't recovered from COVID losses, plus manpower shortage, and your tax dollars. And having, Romney Care, now Obamacare, or the American Care Act, ACA, the reality is that you're better off on private insurance. It helps state taxpayers when they are. Even subsidies from the federal government helps reduce those costs, which then keeps them out of emergency rooms, which puts stress on hospital finances and puts stress on the state as well. It's not like the feds go in and fill in the gap. That's us. So, yeah, this has real ramifications, not just on people that will lose insurance, but
Right.
it affects our ability to budget, which means it affects your tax dollars.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we'll wait and see how it plays out throughout the year. It's not going to be a quick fix.
Nothing will be a quick fix, and the ramifications are gradual. People have this kind of idea that I didn't see the sky fall today. Doesn't mean it's not trickling. As I like to say, sometimes when bad things happen, it starts with a drizzle.
Yes, before it pours, right?
Correct. And that was the whole thing about tariffs. People had projected out that everything impacted once, not really thinking through. It's a gradual infiltration into the price structures, which you're all seeing this Christmas period. You will continue to see into next year. And I'd like to remind folks that those of us in the Asian community, especially us who get imported goods from places like Taiwan and China and anywhere in Southeast Asia, we see the price impact first because we're dealing with longest on food. And for example, we can't find my mom's red rice vinegar brand is not available in the local stores right now, and it's 100% supply chain driven. And some of you may be aware I have a lot of food allergies and dietary problems, and I have very limited number of products I can get overseas I can use. And like I have an oyster sauce, one oyster sauce brand that I can use from Thailand, and I can't find it right now. I'm sure it'll be here at some point, but it's also gone up like 50%.
Sure. Yep. Well, I mean, coffee, I guess, is a good example because so many folks use it.
Yeah, and the Trump administration suspending or trying to reduce those tariffs, it takes time for that to filter through the system. And the reality is also when retailers, well, actually really manufacturers and wholesalers, not retailers as much, get used to you paying these increased prices, and they see that sales continue, they're not inclined to go down.
That's right.
And that's the problem with the tariffs, is that people have this misconception: you reduce the tariffs, you reduce the prices. No, it's a market demand issue. If you continue to pay for those things, they have no incentive to reduce the prices.
That's right. Yeah, people underestimate the power they have in manipulating the markets.
Absolutely. I mean, consumers on the whole, if they decide to, let's say, reduce their coffee consumption outside of the home, it has an adverse effect on everyone from coffee break to Dunkin' Donuts to Starbucks, right? And then if it gets bad enough, they have to do workforce reductions because consumers aren't coming in, or they're going to have to change the price structure. While there are other prices, such as we talked about healthcare for small businesses, as well as product and electrical energy costs and insurance. I don't know about you guys, but my car insurance went up $20 a month. And I have a pristine record right now. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? And I'm sure they're facing all those same challenges too. Mine is very small compared to a business cost. But, on my personal finances, I'm like, wow, this is going to debt me for a while. So then they have to make those hard decisions because consumers aren't spending. And we are a debt-driven economy because credit card debt is about almost $1 trillion again, after coming down a little bit this past summer, where people are using electronic payment more, and companies like Affirm, buy now, pay later, particularly with certain credit card companies, like I have a Citibank card, is greatly encouraged. And according to retailer surveys nationally, there are more people who are making $250,000 at Walmart than ever. They are shying away from higher end stores, retailers, and moving to much more bargain retailers. And again, $250,000 is a different thing for different people. But
True.
it is an indication that people are trading down.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The new year also brought some new laws to Massachusetts that went into effect or are going into effect this week, right?
I remember what they are.
Well, there's the cannabis consumption cafes that's starting up.
Well, that's a regulation.
Yes.
So we'll see how. Again, I'm not going to lament about my satisfaction with the Cannabis Control Commission anymore. We've heard me go like 5 shows about my dismay about that organization. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how those regulations roll out and how they crisscross, not crisscross with local regulatory oversight, because locals do have some regulatory oversight too.
Right.
It's not 100% supplanted by the state.
No, it's an opt-in, I think, is what it was called. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out with the new city council.
That's right. Absolutely. I think the paid family medical leave allotments are going up this year.
That's tied to the medium household income.
Okay.
So the official federal medium household income number doesn't come out to the end of January for the December end of year. However, the Department of Labor here in the state can do an estimate based on weekly wages. So what they do is they collect the weekly wages average of the state, and you can kind of calculate the median household income off of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So your unemployment and your paid family leave is all tied to those numbers.
Gotcha. Okay. We can't ignore the obvious, Tacky, what's going on in the world, I guess, with the president of Venezuela being taken here to the States, and talk about Colombia, Greenland. What do you think about all this?
Well, unilateral action by the United States, which is, I remind folks, historically not a new thing for us, but in the modern era, meaning post-Cold War, it is a much lesser thing that we do. People may recall the CIA did regime change very often in places like Middle East and Latin America and Central America and Southeast Asia during the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. Regime change was part of the CIA's MO that you didn't find out the stuff was declassified much later on, right? But this is much more overt than setting the CIA to do something that, unpleasant to somebody. Let's just leave it at that. And the brazenness of it all. I am not feeling bad for Maduro. Chavez and Maduro has both screwed up Venezuela horribly for actually a resource-rich nation, not just oil, by the way, agriculture, the beaches and tourism. They're actually fairly well educated, but they destroyed their economy by just ineptitude. I actually was listening to a Planet Money podcast by NPR, who did a comparison stories from 2019, 2024, and went through the details on exactly how you blow up an economy by direct government management, and the dangers of having the government manage directly, manage economy directly, and how you can blow yourself up. And how do you maintain power? By basically giving people stuff. Sounds familiar? Let's give you free money. It's generally how you stay in power. And I have no sympathy for Maduro, as you can imagine. But the reality is, when you do regime change, you have to change the whole regime. And Venezuela is not like Iraq. It's not like Assad in Syria or Gaddafi in Libya, where literally the regime was one individual with minimal loyalty around him. Like Assad, for example, had already lost chunks of his military before the complete takeover. The resistance was reduced because Assad was just terrible to everyone. And of course, in Iraq, the U.S. Forces with the multinational effort, on round two with George W. Bush, took out everybody. It wasn't just just Saddam. He took out the entire military. Right. Here in Venezuela, you have a constitution, you have a functional bureaucracy, you have a parliament, and you have a military. The regime actually has not changed. It's still basically one political party. It's still the same military. And even though you have vice president, which they're basically calling an acting president because they want to maintain Maduro's head of state status, is still functioning.
Right.
And the military is going to have to initiate much more harsher crackdowns on the population to prevent any potential uprising, of which many of them are just unarmed. They don't have guns. They're just running around, with homemade club sticks and whatnot. So the military is most likely going to crack down to make sure that there's no unrest. But in terms of day-to-day life for Venezuelans, I don't see a whole lot of change happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just the individual that they're after, not the government.
Well, a regime change means changing the government. I mean,
Right.
that's what Putin's try to do right off the bat in Ukraine war. You may recall, Putin's objective was to end the war within essentially 3 days.
I think that's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, by taking Kyiv and wiping out the entire Ukrainian government system
Right.
and install his own puppet system, right? And you may be aware that, or not aware that Putin had been trying to install pro-Russian prime minister parties, the political parties and prime ministers, as well as presidents, all through Eastern Europe, inside EU nations for decades, using things like oil, subsidies, whatever it takes for them to win an election in Eastern Europe, including disinformation. And you actually see the same thing in Taiwan. The Chinese government has been buying a lot of the media, taking advantage of First Amendment rights to spread disinformation to try to create a pro-Chinese government, which has failed twice now in the parliamentary elections and presidential elections in Taiwan. So people have this concept that these foreign governments don't just affect affect countries outside the U.S. They do, but they also affect us as well. And Venezuela is a very close partner of Russia, very close partner of China. China is the biggest buyer of oil, and Venezuela is less than 1% of all oil production. You may have already heard this weekend it's heavy crude. Only two countries can refine heavy crude: is the United States and China. And low energy prices actually has a negative effect, particularly on shale. If oil prices go under $50, actually under $50, the shale industry would suffer a lot of stress and reduce U.S. capacity consumption and production overall. And globally, consumption's already down in first world countries, but not in developing countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, China's moving towards renewables, Europe's moving towards renewables. They're trying to wean themselves of dependence on situations like Venezuela, right? But Venezuela is like less than 1% of all oil production. And they're part of OPEC, they're part of the original founders of OPEC. And they talk about all these untapped reserves. But because of the poor governments of Chavez and Maduro, the oil refineries are in disrepair. And the rough estimate from oil industry energy experts say it's about a $10 billion investment to bring back up. And they always point to Iraq, where the U.S. really had control of Iraq. And even with Chinese investment in particular, believe it or not, in Iraq, it took them over a dozen years to go from 2 million to 4 million barrels.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad off these refineries are. A lot of these dictator countries don't make infrastructure investments in anything because they basically use the money to buy off people or kill people in the case of Saddam Hussein.
Right.
And have to feed the military to stay in power. And they ignore the infrastructure, including what makes the money is the oil.
Yeah, which is why I think you won't see a lot of oil companies rushing into Venezuela because it's a huge investment.
Yeah, there's a lot of. You got to look into this more, folks. People have been pounding the president on these statements, which I believe you should have the ability to do. However, you do have to look at the totality of the circumstances to decipher whether or not his statements are realistically achievable. And you guys all know I look at a lot of outside the U.S. news these days because the analysis, honestly, is a lot better. If you watch the latest, even a snippet of the Last Economist podcast or YouTube, they talked about oil industry, how it works, and also talk about regime change. For example, Colombia is the next likely one. It's another like 3 to 8 months or 6 months or whatever it takes for the U.S. military to plan an operation, because this was not I'm going to get up and do this kind of thing. It takes months and months of planning. Colombia may be next on the list because it is really the drug cartel country. Cuba is obviously going to always be on the list, but it's also Cuba. It's an island. It's fortified. They expect to get invaded.
Right.
They've been hostile to the U.S. for a long time, so it's a bit of a different scenario. And then you got countries that have natural resource interests. For example, lithium is being nationalized in countries like Argentina. Well, Milei and Trump do get along. The nationalization of an essential resource, something that seems is a very serious concern for the current administration.
Yeah. Seeing as we're talking about energy, can we take it back home here to Massachusetts? I know there's a bill pending, I think, in the legislature to overhaul the energy policies.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's going on. I mean,
Okay.
we do have that bill that came out, Telecom Use and Energy does a major overhaul. That is still in a holding pattern, House Ways and Means. We've got
Okay.
signals what's going to happen next. I've actually heard from all the advocates about why they're upset with this bill already.
Oh,
And I'm not going to get into some of the lobbying efforts regarding, speaking of not great information, but we're not going to touch that right now.
okay.
You'll all think it's strictly us. No, I mean, even people with the best intentions doesn't always have the best information. That being said, I suspect something will happen in 2026. I just couldn't tell you what the schedule will be. And the Senate may go first. Even though the House released a bill, the Senate may go first on this, depending on where they are in the process. So we shall see. I am aware that people are suffering from sticker shock on the gas bills. I remind folks again last year that they had a 10% deferment on your gas bill. Utilities agreed to defer with DPU, but it's a deferment, not a reduction. And I think that communication was very poor by the administration, telling folks they had a reduction. You cannot change a utility company's rates without due process.
Right.
And they did not ask for a rate change.
So, well, I think the hope was that it would be a milder winter this year, which it has so far not turned out to be.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you guys that. I mean, I'm shivering the same you all. And
Right.
My mother needs a warmer house. She already got on me about the energy efficiency component of my Google Nest, which is many folks probably do, have a cooler evenings, but it's too cool for my mother.
Yeah.
So we're burning more gas just strictly because of her health. And we cannot be the only one going through that. I can tolerate a cooler night. I just get more blankets, but my mother cannot.
Right. Yep. Yep. No, so it's definitely having an impact on people for sure.
Most definitely, especially folks that, are older or have health conditions where, if it gets below 70 degrees, they really start to have visible impacts. And my mother does definitely show very physical apparent impacts if it goes under 70.
Yeah. So does part of the bill include changing mass save?
Yeah, that's part of it as well. Not sure exactly how they're going to do it. My personal opinion is that when you're spending, $4 billion of ratepayer money for what in the end is a good question. And everyone gets a free energy audit. Again, I encourage going to people with mass save. They get free energy audit, but there's also a practical cost. I mean, changing heating systems are expensive, and folks on heat pumps, when the electric bill goes up, and the prioritization in the winter again is gas for heating, not for electrical generation.
Right.
So, when it gets to a really cold week, like we've been seeing, under 20 degrees, the electrical generation companies in Massachusetts do not get natural gas, which then forces us to buy a spot market energy for my geographic zone, which then huge spikes in your electric bill.
Right.
Those of you on heat pumps, will see that spike more severe than, folks that are on oil and natural gas. And we talk about oil too. You told me it was over $4 a gallon now, which is extremely high. Yeah,
and we both can't figure out why, because the cost of a barrel of oil has stayed about $58-$60 a barrel.
That's exactly it. This part of the energy market we've talked about a lot regarding gas, gasoline, natural gas, which is not really oil actually. There's a shale component, but put aside the heating oil in particular is a very good question, and I don't really have a good answer. I know in Massachusetts that home heating oil is in massive decline of use, which could drive up prices because of lesser customers.
Yeah.
That being said, it's all market driven, and gasoline at a BJ's was about $2.72.
Hmm.
Prime down in Hancock Street is when I got my gas this weekend. I believe it was $2.78.
Yeah.
At under $60 a barrel, it should really be lower.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And this has been a consistent now for the past 6 months.
Yeah, it's lower than it was last year.
Yes.
We can double check with AAA.
Yes.
They track those prices too, but no, it should be much lower. And especially in a lower demand period. Once you get out of the holiday season, demand goes down, the prices follow.
Exactly. Yeah. And not seeing it manifest itself in the airline industry either.
It's the business class problem.
Ah, okay.
Business travel is still down for airlines, even though leisure travel is up. It seems like every year we have record travel or Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I know.
It never seems like it doesn't be a record. But yeah, that is the real problem because people in business, particularly big corporate, fly on short notice.
Hmm.
And they basically just murdered them on a price.
Sure. Yeah.
That's not the case right now. And they're still suffering from reduction of business class use in spot, like I need a ticket tomorrow kind of thing. They're not getting that. People still planning vacations further out.
Yep.
Trying to get the best price. In case you're wondering, only Tuesday, according to travel bloggers, Tuesday's the best day to start price hunting.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Today's actually Tuesday, so if you're looking for a trip, today's the day to start poking around. But I always tell folks that when you're getting deals in terms of like Expedia or Booking.com saying we'll give you $25 for your next booking by this date, I mean, it's really not a good sign.
That's true. Yeah, because there's obviously not a demand if they're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a member of like Best Buy Rewards. I'm not buying anything from Best Buy in a while. I've not had electronics, and DVDs have kind of gone out of fashion.
Yeah.
And I don't need new appliances, but I got an email saying, come by, Best Buy will give you basically $10 off on your next purchase you do before January 18th. You may have seen that email too, or some variation of that email in your email box for certain reward programs. So, I mean, yeah, consumer is strong, but certain sectors, they wouldn't offer you any kind of deal if they're not hurting somehow.
If they didn't have to, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I mean, my Stop and Shop, my Star Market app coupons aren't that wonderful. Not seeing great deals on that at the moment, and I highly question if the prices are lower. But we talked about the price of coffee already, but things from Canada like oatmeal continues to be at elevated prices. And beef is still a challenge between the screw flies killing beef because they somehow got past the U.S. shield on the screw flies, but also that importing it's challenging. And I don't know you all, but local produce ain't that awesome right now. I mean, it's not great looking produce.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's tough. Yeah, and the prices have not gone down for them either.
No, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't get avocados when they're on sale, and they're not even then. They're not great avocados, and the price of broccoli is anywhere between $1.79 and $1.99 a pound. And if you get lucky, you might get like a surplus situation. We'd have to get rid of it now, but you better eat it right away if it gets below a certain sale price.
That's true. That's true. It's on the turn, as they used to say.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You're 100% right. So. Yeah, no, as you can tell, I like to bargain hunt, particularly on groceries, especially on groceries. And, I lament to my mom's Ensure at a time because she needs her Ensure. She wants one specific flavor and it must be a max because she needs the protein. So between coupons at the doctor's office and trying to bargain hunt, it's a big thing. And, I tell folks again, it's beginning of the year, tax season's coming up. Talk to your financial planner. It's a great time to talk to your financial planner to review your plans for your future in terms of not just retirement, but maybe about big purchases and things like that. It's also a good time to review your credit card debt. And,
yes.
Also remind people of scams. I just got a text from a friend about somebody who claims to be a state lottery winner. More like an AI telling you that, and
okay,
they're willing to share their winnings with you.
Oh, how generous of them!
Yeah, it's so sophisticated. It actually named the location on East Swanham Street.
Is that right?
Yeah,
wow.
it could name the little strip mall on East Swanham Street.
Wow.
So the AI scams are real. They collect more data. I was messing around with one AI scam on email, just emailing back and forth until I screwed it up. because it got its facts wrong and because it just couldn't keep up with the questioning.
You outsmarted them. Very good.
More like the fact that large language models had nowhere else to turn on the internet for the next question.
Gotcha. Okay. Very
So
good, Tacky.
again, check those email addresses. If the email address looks funny, funky from where it's from, look at, same with text messages. They'll generally try to, do an AI bot now, trying to engage in a conversation about, I've not talked to you for a long time
Oh, I've been getting those. Yes.
with no name. You guys probably get texts even from friends, but because you changed your phone and you didn't cloud your contact information and download it back onto your phone, you have these like, who are you kind of like
Right.
text message like, who are you again? It's because sometimes people don't always remember to input their phone numbers.
Yep. Yeah. And those can be phishing scams too. Those questions.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like I said, the large language models are good, but there's a certain point where the information is not on the internet and only you would know what the answer is. I mean, I had a conversation with a friend about this regarding long language models. He's in the IT industry, and he's thoroughly convinced that they can mimic human behavior regarding creating arguments and rationales. And I don't disagree with that. The problem is that not everything's on the internet. As I remind folks, institutional knowledge is something you don't write and put on the internet.
That's true.
You guys all know I've been around, and I have a lot of institutional knowledge about politics locally as well as politics and state government and Beacon Hill. And I know how certain laws came to be, and some I have no idea, obviously. But certain ones I do know. I promise you, no large language model will know the answer.
Right. Yeah. It was never written down.
Yeah, that is right, or never written down and published on the internet.
Right. Exactly.
So I mean, there are limitations, and the human capacity to how they get from point A to point B is something no language model can replicate.
Thankfully, not yet. Anyway, maybe not in our lifetime.
Not in our lifetime, but maybe someday. Maybe. It's one thing to try to take, Charles Dickens and have AI write you a Charles Dickens book based on the diversity of styles he wrote in, versus how did he come up with the idea for the story?
Yeah, it won't know that. Yeah.
The creative process, how many drafts there were,
Right.
what changed in the story, right? And you see this in movie making. Based on screeners and testers, they'll change storylines, or they'll change the CGI. They change something. Or historical events change. Fever Pitch is an example. Fever Pitch actually ended with the Red Sox losing the World Series. Yeah, and it was the year they broke the curse. So they
Interesting.
had to reshoot the whole last scene.
Was that 2004, I think?
Yeah, they had to come back and a lot. Actually, that was before the film tax credit became permanent. They did the shoots in Fenway, but they shot most of that in Toronto.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, people don't realize that a film about one of your favorite sports teams, because of the lack of a film tax credit, was not shot in Massachusetts.
Well, thankfully that's changed.
Yeah, the film industry is very challenged still post COVID. Obviously, you guys know I'm the architect of the permanency of the film tax credit. I didn't write the first one. I was around for the first one. I worked in the Senate, but I mean, removing that sunset was very important. But it's very challenged right now. The industry is still very challenged. Production costs are high. You have all these new contracts. We have challenging against AI. You have content issue where if you make stuff and it makes no money, you take a loss. And you guys see Warner Brothers Discovery out there still trying to facilitate its sale, whether Netflix or Paramount. And intellectual property still has value.
Yeah.
And streaming wars in my mind is Netflix still. They have been best at managing their money on subscription services. So, but it's still very hard. And you saw Avatar, the new Avatar movie finally cracked $1 billion. But Wicked 2 did not accelerate as quickly as they did in Wicked 1, part 1 essentially, on box office sales. And it's expensive to go to the movies. I mean, it's like $19 in the evening.
Oh yeah. Yep. Easily.
Yeah, and they make movie theaters makes the majority of money of concessions.
Right.
So obviously, people they don't like it when you sneak food in, but people will eat a bigger dinner before they go see a movie.
That's right. Just get a soda or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the solution. I mean, just eat before you go to the theater.
Well, Techie, once again, we've kicked off an hour.
Yeah, somehow, some way, we find something to chat about. So, um, just want to again remind folks, scam season's hot and heavy. Because of the immigration situation, that's been a fun one again. People demanding money so they don't get deported. You got the text scam about your Easy Pass not being paid,
Mm-hmm.
not text you about that sort of thing. Obviously, the IRS and Department of Revenue scams, give me money or we're going to foreclose your home kind of stuff. And if it's good too good be true, it most likely is. And definitely encourage folks to reach out to the Attorney General's office, the FTC, us, any legislator you
Mm-hmm.
want, and we can try to help you verify a scam or not. But in terms of identification, check that email address carefully and check that phone number carefully.
Yep. If somebody's telling you to go to a Bitcoin ATM and take out money, don't do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And don't give up personal information, especially social security numbers. And your credit cards, again, have 100% fraud protection. So, God forbid someone steals your credit card numbers or whatnot. Credit card companies have, priced in their version of shrinkage, which is fraud. They pick up the cost for the fraud, which is bad
Right.
for you and it's bad for them.
Yep. Yep. But report it right away for sure. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Okay.
you also get your free credit reports. So if you want to
Yep.
go to Experian or one of the other credit reporting companies, you can check your credit report and you can, let them know there's any discrepancy, like the address is wrong or something like that. You should do that. Again, it's the beginning of the year. It's a good chance to get ready for tax season and, reevaluate finances. But again, I want to emphasize before we go, the number of scams are going to crank up and they're going to rely on the current political environment's fears to take advantage of unsuspecting folks to hand on money to fraudsters. That's all.
Yeah. Here's where we ask you to give out your contact information.
Sure, we're in room 42 at the State House. My room does not change, even though it's a new year. Numbers is still 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. Do give us a call. The office is staffed. Tackey.chan at emmyhouse.gov, tackey.chan at emmyhouse.gov is the email. We do screen, as we were talking before the call, I did screen my emails over the weekend to make sure the emails went to the right staffer. They will try to help you out. In case you're wondering, unemployment emails are still the single biggest call right now to the office. Obviously, we have State Representative Tackey Chan Facebook with an Instagram that goes on along with it. We're a little behind on social media, just to let you all know. So you're going to see some older postings. We do have State Representative Tackey Chan, well, I'm sorry, it's Tackey Chan at org, a resource page, contact page. People do use that, actually. I do get people with unemployment problems contact me via the website. MAlegislature.gov, MAlegislature.gov is the state legislature's website. Very much encourage everyone to go to the website to find your bills, watch public hearings, watch our sessions, and get more information about things important to you in the legislature. And of course, QATV at qatv.org. You guys have a burning question for Joe, please definitely email in. But also check Joe in the morning for his 10 minutes of Quincy news and State House news.
Thanks so much, Tacky. Happy New Year once again.
Happy New Year, and look forward to talk to you soon.